Our next panel will look at banking digitalization, sharing their insights on the progress that has been made and the direction the industry will be taking, as well as the desired skill sets for job seekers in the financial sector. As we will have Merlin Tsai, Head of Digital for CIMB, Mr. Lim Chu Chong, MD and Group COO of Institutional Banking Group, DBS Bank Limited, and Cameron McDonald, Head of Resourcing and Onboarding for HSBC. The discussion will be moderated by Mr. Paul Teo, Head of Communications and Engagement from the IBF. The audience is reminded to post any questions you have for the panel in the Q&A box, and we'll address these live. Over to you, Paul.
Hi everybody. Welcome to the second session this afternoon. And we have our panelists with us. Today, I welcome to invite our panelists to turn on their camera videos. Hi, Merlin, I can see you. Hi, Chu Chong. Hi, Cameron. Hi, great to see everybody. Hope you're having a great day. Just give me a second. I can't hear anyone. Is anyone speaking? No.
Because
not yet. Okay,
speakers,
great.
yeah.
Great,
Hey, Paul.
great.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear Cameron good.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Hi. So this session, we wanted to discuss on digitalization and the impact on the finance sector. So we have three esteemed speakers with us, panelists, and we wanted to position this as a mentoring session as well for people who are job seeking in this aspect. I think we've all heard that digitalization has impacted many jobs, particularly in finance, right? I think earlier throughout the day, we had a few sessions, and some of the sessions, actually, I see some of the questions have rolled over, asking how does it impact corporate banking? How does digitalization impact jobs? Some of it have rolled over, so we'll try and take it this session so it doesn't roll over to the next one. Yeah. So maybe if I could, let me invite our first panelist, Merlin, to do a quick self-introduction. Then we'll follow by Chu Chong from DBS and then Cameron by HSBC. So Merlin, perhaps you start a self-introduction. Thank you. Yeah, on mute.
Okay. So hi everyone. I'm Merlin. I'm now is heading digital business for CIMB Singapore. My responsibilities are to create new digital revenues and to transform the bank digitally. Actually, just my second month here. Yeah, so I'm still quite new to CIMB as well. So a lot of effort and new talents I needed to be my partner to transform CIMB into digital space. Before joining CIMB, I was in a financial investment company to supervise for micro lending company and one village bank in China, and also that the digital business setup for these entities. In addition, I was in charge of investment to fintechs and also did a startup on digital lending business in 2018. Yeah, so I think my previous 6 years, 7 years all in the fintech space, but now I came back to banking vertical again. Yeah, thanks. Hello?
Paul, are you trying to say something?
Oh yes, I was gonna invite Chu Chong to say something.
Okay.
I had to do your self-introduction. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chu Chong. I'm from DBS, and I'm currently the Group COO of Institutional Banking Group, which is a corporate chain for DBS. Been in DBS for quite a long time, 27 years, both in corporate and SME banking. In my current role now, I cover business policies, business processes, data, digital, sustainability, customer experience, marketing, design, governance and controls, and operating model. Is whatever that is non-business and non-product. Before this, I used to be based in China for 4 years. I came back only last December. In China, I was the head of the IBG for China. And before that, I used to head SME for DBS Group.
Thank you, Chu Chong. Well, let's move on to Cameron. Cameron, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us today. Cameron McDonald, been with HSBC for 17 years now, of which the last year and a half has been here in Singapore, covering both Singapore and Malaysia as the head of the resourcing. And similar to what Chu Chong and Merlin said, it's a wide range that we cover, and everything from recruitment, process improvements to onboarding, operations, the governance and controls. Really, you name it, and a lot of it comes down to stakeholder management. So really trying to manage those and manage the teams that are really the ones driving it on the ground. And like I say, prior to the role here, I was with HSBC in Canada, and I was fortunate enough to actually move out of the resourcing world and into the business. So I've been fortunate enough to be in the GLCM, the global liquidity management, and in the commercial banking space, the retail space, and I did a lot of work in change management. So very fortunate to have a bit of a storied career, like Paul, like Chu Chong has had over there at DBS. Bit of a lifer so far. So hoping to keep it that way. So thanks for having us.
Thank you. So our panelists today have a deep range of experience and expertise to share. So let's go back to digitalization as a topic, right? And its impact on the jobs that you see. I'm going to give each speaker a few minutes to share your thoughts on how digitalization you find has impacted the jobs recently in the areas that you manage. So for example, Merlin, just now you talked about digital setups that you do and the teams that you set up. What are the roles that you're recruiting for and you see constantly moving? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think the digitalization not just impact on banking industry, we can see it impact in more and more industry verticals as well. So as I mentioned earlier, say I spent a couple of years in China. Actually, I'm also spend time to transform them digitally. Now, I think in Singapore, because the MAS incurred the support, right, and all the market, I think everyone focus on how to do it digitally. So in banking side, in CIMB, like I just mentioned in my self-introduction, it's a new business unit. Okay, so we are looking for some talents from the technology. I would say all spectrum, from technology, from analytics, from credit decision, and also from the product, etc. So this role, I think it can be transformed from existing role, but need to equip themselves with more digital knowledge or the industry, what will be the new technology, new solution they offer in the market. So how the people can combine these two. So there's the kind of people that I'm looking for. So more specifically, it will be like technology product person, analytics and modeling, and also the product design. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So Chu Chong, similarly, earlier you mentioned that you oversee many areas, including data and technology. I heard a few user experience, etc. So what sort of job roles do you see are trending or currently even is sort of like evergreen and always recruiting at this moment? Do you see in terms of digitalization?
Yes, I think as the banking digitize, you find that a lot of this repetitive processing work will be phased out by process automation. Client service kind of like will be replaced partially by a chatbot. I think we can all see that now. Sales will be knowledge assisted by data, information, and a lot of tools. So if we have the right tools, you can make your average salespeople even better. And you're asking what are the skills that we look for? We look for people with data and analytic skills, not different from what Merlin was saying. These people are in demand because we're dealing with such a lot of data, and we need people to make sense out of those data. How do you use data to be the base of your operating model? We need people with digital skills. Those are what we sought after. Marketing is also an important area. How do you communicate with the customer? Customer experience is also key. And sometimes for customer experience, we would actually like people who are not boring bankers. We like people who are from other industries,
Yes.
so that the bank can communicate with human beings, not other bankers. And we like people with design background too. And those evergreen roles that the bank always hire will be for real bankers. That means people who deal with customers. But even for frontline sales, for the large corporate area, you find that banks are moving into industry specialization. So sometimes we do take in people who are from the industry, not necessarily banking background, and infuse them into our bankers kind of community. So that you have a mix of it. Then of course, you talk about banks trying to be more fintech or tech fin, whichever you call it. So people who know both banking and technology, they are quite well sought after, because these are people who can configure very innovative solutions. So these are some of the roles that the banks will be looking for.
Thank you. Maybe for Cameron to share a bit on your views on digitalization and its impact on job roles in banks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think there's maybe a bit of a misconception out there that, digital is taking jobs away. I think it's actually creating more jobs. It is, we're looking for those people that are able to, who are change oriented, very much have a thirst for learning, and I really want to be, lifelong learners, which is different than, the workforce in the last, that I grew up in, so to speak. So those are definitely some really important things. I think when we look at kind of digital, we have a little joke here at work that there's no course called digital. You don't go to university and specialize in digital, because it's so ingrained in everything else that we do. It's just been an enhancement or a progression of existing roles. Yes, some roles have gone away. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of change, but that just brings another skill set that's required in there. So it really is that person who's really wants to learn, that lifelong learner, very analytical, very similar. I mean, not any really different than what Merlin and Chu-Cheng have said. We kind of also think of it, maybe people used to think of digital, I think, as very technology. And it definitely, there's definitely a heavy level of technology. And like Chu-Cheng said, we really want people who have that business and technology acumen. So really bringing both of those to the table is really important. So, if a person's more of as we would say, maybe more of that back end, more of that IT side of digital, cloud engineer, that kind of cloud engineering or AI, definitely, there's a skill set there, Python programming, whatever it might be, SQL, R, which I'll be honest with you, it's gotten so advanced now, I'm not sure exactly what R is, but I know it's a skill set we look for. So I think those are really important. And then when you kind of move to that middle and front office, if you think of digital, it comes into that product management, more of that design, what are the propositions, what are the journeys, what's that user interface? All of those kinds are really important. And I've heard it a few times, it's really that data analytics, which is a big piece that we do. We've actually, we actually have partnered up with IBF in one of their programs and have some for interns, which I'll probably touch on later on in this discussion. But yeah, so I think it's really about understanding the data, the customer facing data, what your customer needs are, putting that customer first, but being really inquisitive, I think are really kind of some of the skill sets. I picked up at the end of your presentation, Brice, before, someone using the word passion. We want people who are passionate. We want people who are coming from different industries. So, it really is, it is kind of a bit of a mixed bag, but it is those soft skills. The technical skills, yes, but really those soft skills and really understanding the business and the propositions, and taking those propositions and putting them into a digital journey versus kind of you walk into a retail bank instead of now, well, maybe we, for us, we have like a new online account opening journey, which was something, years ago we've always talked about, and now, it's arrived, so to speak. So those are some of the things, and then you'll hear terms like data scientists or product managers. All of those are kind of the key things that we would be looking for.
Thank you. Thanks all for sharing. I hear a lot of about business, marrying business and tech skills, and having the acumen in the skills that the repertoire that the person needs to have, and passion. I think we need to go a bit deeper later, but we'll come to skills in a bit. Maybe we heard so many roles about this digital world has brought about in banking. Some of these roles, maybe let's share about what advice would we give somebody looking to join these roles from a mid-career standpoint. That means if I wasn't from this industry, or I was never doing something like digital or remotely related, maybe say if I was in design, right? What sort of advice would you give to somebody to pivot to these new roles? Can I start off with Merlin, maybe?
Okay. Yeah, I think this one, okay. I think firstly have to identify where the gap is in terms of skills. For example, if you are technology background, right, no matter in what kind of industry that you are, actually you still got a lot of transferable skills. So it will be quite easy for you to get into the so-called digital banking roles. Of course, you need to spend time to catch up the banking knowledge. And of course, we are also looking someone who hasn't been well trained by traditional banking as well. Okay, so I think technology person and also analytic background person will be much easier to get into the new roles under the current digital banking direction. Yeah. So for those who are not in analytics or in technology in the related industry or related role now, say could be like business person, like product design person. I think you still got a chance to get into it, but I think you need to spend time to talk to the industry, the people in the industries. And then you have to try to learn some new technology skills. I think a lot of research paper, a lot of what kind of new solution have been come out in the market. You need to spend time to study hard. At least you know what tools you might have, and data, how can you again leverage your existing capability in terms of business planning, in terms of product design, that you can narrow down the gap to your new role.
Yeah. So it's looking at the skills gap and whether there is a gap in the job application.
Yeah. In fact, now internally, I also try to transfer some existing colleague into my digital team as well. Yeah. So still got a lot of chance, but I think the candidate need to really spend time on it. And also, like Cameron mentioned, patience is most important.
Patience. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe Paul,
yeah.
I can give you two examples of two personas in our design team. The design team that helps our business. One of them used to be a teacher.
Okay.
Right, so I was told that before she joined us, she took courses in design thinking.
Yeah.
Then, of course, during the interview, they gave her a design challenge. So she solved it well. And she of course, improved herself as she went along. But she's actually a teacher, and she's now helping us to design our merchant solutions.
Right, interesting.
And it's all about coming in to learn. Then the other story I will share is that in the design team, there was another person who used to be a psychologist.
Okay.
And then the person obviously understands more than the average person about human-centeredness
behavior,
and then the person is now working on a product design for our audit confirmation for analytics-based lending. So these are examples of people who are from very different background, not from the bank, but they came into our world and they picked things up. They were curious to learn and they somehow adapted.
Yep. Just wondering, Cameron, if you have anything to add on.
Yeah, just maybe just quickly. It's funny because one of the examples I would have used is a psychologist as well. So where they came into a data scientist type of a role. So yeah, I think it's really understanding. You know, it's a big digital world, right? And it's hard to kind of, you almost have to maybe consider what your transferable skills are the most, right? Trying to put a around square peg into a round hole doesn't really work. Not to say that people can't do it. I don't mean it by that at all. I just mean really if you have some kind of problem solving skills, or you're more of a design, like when Chuchong mentioned the design thinking, that's something that if people haven't done that, I would recommend get into some design thinking courses, because it really is the new mindset in terms of how to think. How to approach problems. It's a different way of problem solving. So I think that's something that people could definitely consider. Some of the other examples I would have would be the people who came into into our internship through IBF. They had differing backgrounds. Some were finance, some were a bit more data analytics. One was an arts major. So it's kind of I think it just goes to prove that there's no kind of exact recipe for the right fit. It really comes down to people and their way of adapting to the new world and new ways of learning. And I think it really does come down to those problem solving skills. And we talk a lot about data. That's one thing, we've all mentioned a few times. And what does that really mean? What does really understanding the data mean? And what do we mean from a customer lens? What do we mean from a commercial lens, a retail lens? So I think it really is those analytical skills. And really utilizing those and really understanding, challenging the data, having that kind of inquisitive mind is really important. And if you have those attributes and those capabilities, then this is a new world for people to kind of get into. Then it's a matter of lining that up with the right program or curriculum. I think is, kind of becomes that other, that other challenge for people. But there are a lot of great programs out there that could help them with that. So I think the advantage people have if they're at a mid-career move is they have a lot of other skills. They have a lot of other work experience, right? So they do have that, I don't want to call that an advantage, but it's literally they could play that to their advantage in terms of they having skills in a particular industry, right? So they don't have to be from the finance industry. We also want to have some people to mix it up and get all that different ways of thinking and different previous work experience and bring that into the workplace.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you got me. I think Chuchong and Cameron got me excited there. How did this? Maybe it would come down to qualities, right? In terms of what the person need to have. I think you shared a few soft skills like the inquisitive mind, passion, being able to do some background understanding, and looking for skills that are relevant and gaps, right? But I'm a bit curious why, because you mentioned teacher, right? So we actually have a few people who registered in this fair who are teachers actually. I did see a few registrants. And they're probably considering a mid-career switch, right? So the question is, what kind of qualities do they show? I mean, I can't. How do they communicate this to an interviewer or a hirer at your various banks that I have these qualities that suit this specific role, and the ones that are worth highlighting for this particular digital roles that you have? I mean, how did the psychologist or the teacher come up and say, hey, I think I fit this role. these are the qualities I have. I mean, that would be ideal, right? But I think a lot of this people in the audience might not. Maybe you can share your thoughts on this.
So I go first. Okay, so for example,
sure.
I do not know the background around the hiring, but you see, if at the pre-hiring part, what qualities we look for, very similar to what Cameron shared. We look for a person who is very, very curious, with a strong ability to learn. So obviously that needs to come out from the chat, the initial chat, what the person is curious about, what the person is passionate about, what do they do about their passions, how do they learn, how do they pick up things. So I think curiosity and the ability to learn is really key. Problem solving skills, Cameron mentioned that as well. This is very, very key in banking. There are many problems to solve, and whether the problem is usually kind of like you need to solve it end to end, from the customer's end right to the middle part of the bank to the back end part. And so you need people who are almost customer obsessed and knowing how to do the right thing, what is logical and all that. You know, in the bank, sometimes I would tease my folks and say, if this is the process, would you put your brother-in-law through it? This is called a brother-in-law test.
And mother-in-law test.
Oh, that's more serious. Okay.
Yeah, tougher.
So this ability to solve complex problems become quite important. So typically the interviewer either put them through tests, assessment tests, or even problem-solving tests, or the candidate needs to articulate what kind of complex problems he or she can solve. Then the other thing would be this adaptability and open-mindedness. I think in changing a career, you're always going out of your comfort zone and taking a risk. So we will look for people with the correct mindset, whether they can adapt to a new place, whether they have that open-mindedness to take the plunge. So that is what I would say in terms of trying to prepare yourself for at least for the interview to try to get through the door.
Okay, sure. Just Malin.
Yeah, I think I can also share something. So how you can position yourself and to impress the person, right, the interviewer. I think one thing is it's very important. You really need to talk to the person who are in the industry, so you will know what kind of job role will be you will be much fit for the job role. For example, if we go back to the scientist, the psychologist, right? So for example, now in the so-called credit decision engine, we use a lot of non-traditional data. We call alternative data. So a lot of psychology related factors will be put into the credit decisioning, which will be different from traditional banking, because traditional one, we just use a customer demographic, some customer financial income data. We never use so-called alternative data, which need a lot of psychology analysis and to observe the behavior of the customers. Okay, so if you know such a role would need to have so in-depth knowledge on this area, then you can position yourself better. Yeah, that's one way I am considering the candidate. Yeah.
Cameron, if you have anything to add?
Yeah, just differentiate yourself. We get this question a lot in recruitment, career fairs, wherever we might be, whether it's at the university, college level, or all the way up. Or I meet somebody and they want to ask me questions, whether it's on LinkedIn or something. It's really what differentiating yourself. Like I kind of say, if you're really trying to kind of highlight what makes you different, and whether that be on to Merlin's point about getting out and meeting people in the industry, let people know that. I've been out and I've spoken to X number of people in the industry, and I really believe this is the area. Like, people are still trying to do things very, I think, a little bit too traditional. They're trying to go into non-traditional draws, but their approach is still very traditional. And so I just think it's really how you're able to make yourself jump off the paper, if you will, or off the screen really today, right? So I think that's really important, because I think, look, the number one challenge probably for people in mid-career changes or early careers is getting your foot in the door, is getting that interview, right? So it's really start there. What are you going to do to differentiate yourself? What kind of pre-work are you going to do, and how can you then highlight that? If you know problem solving and analytical skills and all these things are important. I don't know, maybe you run a sports team and you ran an algorithm to help figure out what everyone's batting average is. I don't know, but I mean that kind of thing. Really think something a little different that kind of make people go, hey, wait a second, this person's really they're taking a different approach. So I think that's really important, is kind of how you differentiate yourself. And then it's like, the rest, it is the assessment. So we'll be assessments. So how you prepare for those is really going to be really important. So I always kind of say to people, it's how are you going to differentiate yourself? Because if you think everybody's kind of essentially equal, they're coming in with the same grade point average, or they're coming in with a similar work experience, and they're coming in with the same course that everyone just took, then how do you kind of make yourself stand out from that? Probably comes down to things you might do in your personal time, whether that's volunteering or extracurricular. I'll look at something that someone does 25K a weekend on a Saturday morning, just because I'm like, well, there's someone who's driven every Saturday, they're up and doing 20. So it's those things that people have to get out of the mindset sometimes of, it's not just about the education or the work experience, about the other things that you do that might make people kind of go, oh, based on these activities that they're doing, it shows me that they handle multiple things during the week. They're part of multiple different things. So their ability to think differently. So those are the types of things that I mean by differentiate yourself.
Yeah, I think I want to remind one thing is the success of the fintech come from disruptive. That means you have to disrupt the current process, the current mindset. So don't forget this word. Yeah, you have to think how to disrupt.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes, kind of on that same line. People who I think everyone's trying to be perfect, and the reality is you need to make mistakes, or second and third, quadruple attempts to get to the end goal. And so again, that's part of that mindset and attitude we have, where you don't kind of take failure, you kind of take that as a bit more of a challenge, because that's the attitude we're talking about.
Thank you.
I think this attitude and mindset is really key, because we all know that aptitude can be picked up along the way, but we look for the people with the attitude and mindset to take risks and to learn. That's because once you get through the door, assuming you get through the door and you settle into a job, that's why you have to integrate into a different environment. You have to somehow hasten your learning process, either formally or informally. That takes that curiosity and the social skills to go and learn from other people. And you also look for attitude that people are not afraid to ask questions, because they will have to ask lots of questions to pick things up. So I would just add that this mindset and attitude is really key and disruptive too. They must be able to challenge the status quo, because we would like these people to come and introduce change for the better.
And to add to that is, it doesn't end the day you get in the door to an organization. If anything, we're expecting you to excel at that. At HSBC, we have we've introduced something called the STA within our wealth and personal banking, our retail banking business, essentially, where it's a short-term assignment within that group, and you basically you self kind of apply for this, you nominate yourself, and then you are actually sitting in the other teams. So you may be someone in maybe a more traditional role today. So we're kind of doing, when we talk about how people are pivoting out in the industry, we're trying to pivot our people within our organization as well right now, where it's really critical for them to learn these skills and adapt to kind of different ways of working. So, we've created that platform of continual learning within the organization. And again, that comes back to that mindset and attitude, where those are the types of people that we want to do that. We have a thing called Future University. So again, there's just, the expectation is we just don't have those things there, because people might use them. The expectation is people will leverage that, and we even bring people in from like whether it's Google or LinkedIn, whatever it might be, to kind of share, because it's not just about how we're doing it in an FI. It's kind of what else is happening out there. That's the beauty of digital. It's much bigger than just an industry, right? Or it has to be this way for this industry. That's how you learn. So that zest for learning, again, I just can't stress it enough in terms of what we look for and how you can then demonstrate that through the recruitment process.
Yep. Right. Thank you. Actually, we have one question in the Q&A segment. So I'm just gonna jump off and take that question because we're on that topic right now, and it's probably quite exciting. But I also want to take this time to encourage all our viewers, our audience, to post some questions so that we can take your questions from the panelists, and if we have not answered them, let us know. I think earlier somebody shared the first question was, how do I get my foot in the door? Given that I'm a mid-career, I have no banking experience and I'm willing to learn. So is willingness to learn good enough quality to get interviewed? I think just now earlier we shared quite a lot on this also. Maybe just quick thoughts on, is this good enough to get the first interview? Willingness to learn?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very candid, right?
Because you must have a form of skills that the bank requires, right? It cannot be totally unrelated. It's not that I'm willing to learn, here I am, take me. It doesn't happen this way. So because you need to say that I may not have relevant experience, but I have this kind of stuff that will be relevant to the role or to what the bank is looking for. Yeah. So for example, we have data scientists in our team. I got to know the data scientist after I came back from Singapore. And he started life in China as a rocket scientist. So
what?
A rocket scientist.
No kidding.
We always talk about rocket scientists
part of jobs,
figuratively, right? Yeah. But he was literally a rocket scientist in China. Okay. And then he did research, he did technology, and he did consulting before joining a bank. Of course, when he joined us, he was from another bank. But he also had to pivot. And you need to have some relevant skills that the bank can use. That's from me.
Okay. Merlin, Cameron, if you have anything to add.
Sure. I think it just comes down to a lot more than just putting on a resume willingness to learn, or I work well, or I work well with others, or collaborative, or thirst for learning. It's then how do you take the concepts that we're talking about today and actually portray that into some storytelling almost, or in terms of some examples of what you've done. I quickly read, I think there was a question there from someone in the semiconductor industry. Again, great opportunity. I think someone come from the semiconductor industry. I mean, I think heavy engineering, I think very complex world. How do you then take that and kind of peel that back to the point where it kind of marries up with the type of roles that we're talking about? So I think it really just comes down to how you demonstrate that yes, you do have a willingness to learn, right? So again, maybe it's because you've taken up something, you've taken up being cooking, or something. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, because cooking can be quite complex. At least I think so. Good cooking can be very complex.
Ramsey's terms, it's complex. Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of being sure that everything you're putting on there is that you're backing that up with your, whether it's a personal example or a work example, but something that you've done to illustrate these skills, because at that point it now becomes a reality. It's a reality, right? It's it's not just kind of words on a page. It's actually, oh, well, look what they've done. They've demonstrated this. I want to talk to them. I want to hear more about that. That's what you really want to leave people with, is I want to hear more about this, or something that they've said on the resume, or how they believe that they can marry up the semiconductor industry with data scientists and data analytics. Very well can. Again, very engineering. There's a lot of intelligence required in the semiconductor industry. It's quite complex in itself. So
thank you.
My suggestion would be you need to make yourself more relevant to narrow down the gap, right? One approach is, because anyhow, you will still be the customer to any digital bank, right? Then think it from the way that if you are a customer, what are you expecting for? Okay, so because it's really a challenge to the existing banking person, right? Because usually we would design the digital solution. Maybe we still from our angle. Say, for example, yesterday, I challenged my team, say, hey, how come if the lending if the digital lending product have been failed, have been rejected, then you will tell customer, oh, your loan have been rejected. Okay, so we still do it from the angle that we are a bank, right? So if you can make a story from you are a customer, what you think the digital bank should serve you, I think will be easier. They will make your interview more interesting. And then the interviewer can identify your potential as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So put yourself in the seat of the customer and make demands on the bank, and then go and solve it yourself.
That's why I always request to my team.
and then go and solve it yourself. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So we had a flurry of questions come in. I think just now the semiconductor raised a quite interesting question. Coming from another industry, right? Their question was really what is the passion in financial services now, right? And they asked the panelists, what is the thing that drives you going to work every day? maybe I think in the current digitalization or the change, I think the industry is at an inflection point. I think earlier Cameron did say that there's quite a bit of transformation going on even within traditional roles. So maybe what are your thoughts on what keeps you going to work every day? And I think there's another one that asked, have any of our speakers have had a midlife crisis? Any tips to overcome? It's not fun. It's not really a funny thing. I think why this probably come out is we do have a lot of mid-career switchers in the group, in the audience, and they're asking very genuine questions and to see whether if the panelists could give some advice.
Okay, I think I will take the question on how to motivate yourself, right, to work in long hours.
In financial services.
In financial services.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think because in fintech, right, it's also in all the new technology, you can sense every day a lot of new technology, a lot of new solution, a lot of new fintech will come out. So you have to keep updating yourself, all the new knowledges, and then you have to think, how can I incorporate this new knowledge into my existing business model, or I have to develop a totally new, a brand new business model as well. So then naturally you will feel some pressure. So even though now I'm in the bank again, I wasn't no more in the startup, but I still keep this kind of working momentum. And also you have to keep yourself to talk to the people, to talk to different fintech people. Then you can get a lot of ideas from them as well. Then you will, when you come back to your job, right, your company, your bank, right, you need to think how you can leverage this new knowledge, new technology, then to enhance your current work, and then to serve your customer better. So you can sense the speed is very fast in the fintech space. So gradually, naturally, you will push yourself to be up to speed. Yeah, you don't want to be left behind, actually.
Peer pressure. So it's peer pressure.
Peer pressure, exactly.
Yeah.
I think
yes, go ahead.
I think financial services, like Merlin says, is quite fast paced and is actually long hours.
Yeah.
So I didn't have time to have a midlife crisis. But jokes aside, what I think for me, what drives me forward will be what is the problem to solve? There are many problems to solve. What are the things to change? There are many things to change for the better. And how do you connect the dots? The bank is actually quite big, and just connecting the dots requires a lot of skills and understanding. This will be the three things for me. So I think for those folks that are making a big mid-career change, I think you probably need to see what do you have that will be relevant to what the bank is looking for. So if you talk to enough people, there are different parts of the bank that will look for people that's outside the bank. We talk a lot about data, for example. Everybody knows that. Well, the bank talks a lot about data, but the banking industry as a whole is behind perhaps other industries in data. So if you do want to hire people for data, you tend to look outside the bank. So you will look for people with the relevant skills. We may hire people, let's say, in research, in A-Star, for example. For our data scientists, we have hired people who are game developers or people who have done their own startups, because these are the kind of experience you need. So you bring in these people with the experience, and they can learn banking, because there are a whole lot of bankers in the bank anyway. They can tell them more about banking. Then how do you connect the skills they have with what the bank is looking for? So I would advise the mid-career people to see how you can be relevant to some of these changes.
Maybe I can also give advice, because I met a very big career change. I was always in banking industry for more than 15 years, and then I decided to move into fintech space. But now I come back. I come back to banking industry again. But I think at that time it's like 6-7 years ago, right? To a lot of person who will feel, wow, it's really too courageous, because banking industry is comparatively more safe, right, and more like people will treat you or consider you as got a certain decent job, right? Then how come I want to change into the fintech? So I think you need to make up your mind. Once you make up your mind, then you really to help yourself to learn all the new things. You don't need to give yourself any chance to go back. But now I go back because I think it's a time for traditional bank to be digitalized. Yeah, so I think you need to think it, make up your mind and do it.
Okay, take action.
Yeah, take action.
Cameron, sorry, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, just really quickly, I think in terms of, I think both have said it quite well. It really depends on what you determine in terms of your analysis. You know, do you want to be with a fintech? Do you want to be with a new digital online banking, or do you want to be, we use the word more traditional, but I agree. It is a more we're a much more digitalized world now in the banking industry. Yeah. So I think it really depends on what it is you're looking for. You know, for HSBC being a global bank, our product offerings are much more diverse and much wide, spread a much larger net than you would at a fintech or that is kind of a digital, a new digital pop-up bank kind of thing. So I think it really comes down to the type of work. Nothing wrong with those organizations. I think it just comes down to maybe a person's preference. But recognize, I think what I'm trying to say is people need to recognize that, there is differences, right? There's differences in the product offerings, the customer journeys, all of those kind of different connectivity. So people are going to choose different banks for different reasons. There are different types of FIs for different reasons. So I think it's kind of, again, it comes down to people and their own analysis and determination on where they think they would best fit. And you don't just fit in one. Merlin's moved in and out of to the fintechs and back again. So I think it's just important that people kind of keep that in mind when they're thinking about it. One of the questions was that I wanted to add on was around the environments today are much different than they were years ago. we want people to be open. We want people to be connected. We want people to speak up. We want people to challenge the status quo. These are all skills that in the past you were probably told maybe not to do, right? So get in line and listen and do what you're told. That's not it. I mean, that doesn't get you where you need to go. So for me, that's what's exciting and gets me wanting to come to work every day, is that change and kind of the philosophy, if you will, of how we run our organizations. You know, what we do with sustainability, what we do in our communities. You know, it really is much more the range and diversity in which we do things is exciting, and that change is happening so constantly now that it's you know, you kind of get you get a bit addicted to it. So for me, you know, those are kind of the things that I come in. It is the fact that roles are changing and we're kind of on this constant evolution that I think is really exciting, and that's regardless if you're in the FI industry or not. I think that's just kind of where we are as a global economy. So it is interesting and exciting times. It's, as we like to say, it's never boring, never boring. So you know, there's always something to do. And again, you can challenge, right? If you're being asked to do something, you're encouraged to kind of say, well, hold on, does this make sense? Would I do this? If this was my money, would I invest it here? Is this the customer journey that I think is right? And you know, speak up and make a difference type of thing. So
yeah, thank you. So let's look at the questions. I think some of them are saying that even with relevant experience, Raymond, so I'm just reading it for the dial-in audience. Raymond Wong says, even if with relevant experience and skills, some of us find it difficult to secure even an interview. What advice can panelists provide us to be able to get to meet up with you guys, with the candidate? So I think Cameron mentioned something earlier about writing achievements in a way that is like a story, right? So that the person who reads it would say, hey, I want to meet this guy, right?
yeah.
So that's
It's trying to differentiate
yeah.
yourself, not trying to be part of the pack kind of thing, right? It's really kind of differentiating yourself when it comes down to your experience, and make it more than just your work experience. Make it about your life experience. I can't stress that enough. That's what we're kind of interested in. It tells us a much bigger part of the story of who you are. Obviously, you know, the regular things need to be there. What's your education? What's your work experience? But how are you? You know, we can tell a lot of the time and effort if one's been cut and pasted and you've applied to 5 jobs in the same time. It's you know, there's certain little things sometimes that a recruiter will actually go, you addressed it to the wrong bank. So obviously your interest is, so I think sometimes it's really paying attention to the small details. There is no magic potion. But I think some of the things that we've said today, again, around just around differentiating yourself, and to me, it's around, if you know these are the types of skills that we're looking for, how do you tell the story a little differently on your resume and application? Are you still doing a cover letter or an email letter or whatever we're calling them these days? I mean, you know, are you going to industry events? You know, I mean, a lot of the time it's when you go to an industry event and, you know, someone has the courage to come up and talk to me and actually introduce themselves and actually has a conversation. That doesn't hurt at all, right? Because that person has now made an imprint on my mind, and it's much more likely. I'm not looking at the resumes every day. I've looked at it. I've dealing with that governance and controls piece and processes that we talked about earlier. But definitely my team, that's what I ask them to look for. You know, can they determine a mindset or an attitude, you know, in terms of in line with our values and our culture that we want to have here. Right.
Thank you. Not sure if Chu Chong and Merlin has anything to.
No, I'm trying to guess why they have relevant experience and yet they are not picked up for an interview. It could be because the recruiters might assess that based on the applicants, this is a bit less relevant than the others who are more relevant. It could be the case. It could be also there are certain roles that we actually gave our HR a brief that says that recently we were looking for a position, and our brief to HR is that please don't find someone from another bank.
Right. Okay.
But of course, we can't say bankers, please do not apply. So yeah, there could be circumstances like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would suggest you might need to add like 1 to 2 page at like simple to pitch yourself other than resume.
Yeah.
Because purely from resume, you won't standing out if you don't have relevant experience. But don't forget, I mentioned everyone is the customer to banks. So from your point of view, how you can do a simple suggestion or business model that you think can be, of course, it could be, it won't be very mature because eventually you are still not in the industry, but then we can see your potential and your view. For example, in China, right, Ali and Finance, they have investment company. They invest fintech every month for more than 5 companies. They don't have time to do due diligence, but they value the opportunity to talk to the person who run it, because the idea, the patient is more important than the resume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel I'm very passionate now?
Yeah, I guess it's still trying to differentiate yourself. To Cameron's point.
Use a different approach.
Yeah, there was a question that we didn't really answer related to this. Is it even possible that the banks are ageist hiring practice?
What? Sorry?
Ageist. That means the bank that
not possible.
Not possible. Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Yeah.
We have so many. You know, we live by equal opportunity. You know, diversity and inclusion. You know, I truly am at HSBC for 17 years because I believe in the organization. I believe in our culture. I believe in the diversity that we bring. It's really important to us. And here in Singapore, you know, it's even, you know, there's even more from a regulatory perspective to make sure. It's. I saw the question and I wasn't sure if we were even gonna, wasn't sure how you wanted to deal with that one. But fair and equal opportunities is very important.
I agree. I think we all know the answer. I think the banks are responsible and employer of choice in some instances. So,
not to bore people, Paul. Not to bore people, Paul. But what people probably don't see, because you wouldn't see it if you weren't on the recruitment side, is the regulations, is the checks and balances, not only from within organization that are required, but also that like I say come from MAS, MOM. Like they are there. So I mean, there are so many checks and balances throughout our recruitment process for fair and equal opportunities, anti-bribery and corruption, our vetting. You know, there's everything from our, you know, we have diversity and inclusion as a major part of ours. You know, I just think I get the frustration, you know, you're trying and you're not really sure why you're not getting through the door. But I would, you know, hand on heart, the fair and equal opportunities for everyone. And it comes down to differentiation or a particular skill set. You know, you see the skill set listed like this. And sometimes it is 1 or 2 things, like Chichong said, where we really have to get this because our team, this is the gap in the team. It's this bit of it, even though we advertise it for all. And that's just the tough part. That's the tough part of, you know, applying for jobs and kind of the not being selected even for an interview. Like we've all been there. So I just say keep at it, you know, and keep differentiating yourself and doing different things and stay positive. I think, again, mindset, stay positive.
Thank you. I have some questions that are quite complex. Let me see. For a graduate from TIPP Professional Applied AI, aspiring to be a data scientist with past experience of corporate finance and aerospace engineering, to be able to join SGUPSG traineeship in banking industry as a data scientist, if it's viable. Right. I think this person has gone for some technical training in applied AI and is aspiring to be a data scientist. Past background, corporate finance and aerospace engineering. Is it a viable switch or?
My response will be it's actually quite viable because
Yeah.
one of our data, I told you about the data scientist who's a rocket scientist, right? Then there is another one who did his own AI startup for logistics. And so yeah, it's actually quite viable if the person is interested. Yep.
Thank you. Somebody asked, panelists, I co-founded a company for advanced algo trading with data analytics.
Cool.
And have been scaling up capacity to manage at least 10 million accounts worth. However, I do not have any master's or PhD degree. Can you advise what level or type of roles will I be suitable in your bank?
Is this for data?
Yes, they did an algo trading. So it's probably a trading platform with data analytics. Yeah, so develop a platform.
Paul, I would say to folks with this kind of background, you should talk to, I don't know HSBC, but and Merlin's bank. But I think for DBS, we are definitely looking for people who have this kind of background.
Yeah. I think for this kind of background, he or she can do is a data analytics related role, or even the business model development in trade finance, in corporate commercial banking, etc. Yeah, I think very good. Very close to the candidate that we are looking for. Yeah.
Depends on how they are wired, right? But they are good for data roles. They are good for transformation roles, especially if they have like different kinds of experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think somebody asked about job opportunities. I think we shared that earlier, and what kind of openings there are. I think this is answered. Okay. So this person asked if many banks are moving roles out of Singapore due to high costs. What are your thoughts? Will the current normal of working remotely help to reduce the roles being moved out of Singapore? Firstly, maybe we address the roles being moved out of Singapore due to high costs.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that. First of all, I haven't really heard of a lot of the banks here. I know HSBC is not, and I think I could, I'm not going to speak for DBS or anybody, but I mean, obviously DBS being a local bank, they're not going to do that. So that's not the case. If anything, with HSBC, Singapore, Asia Pacific is the biggest contributor of our group, globally. So, our investment will continue to be in Asia. Singapore will continue to be an investment market. So from a HSBC response to that, I would say, no, that's not the case. Given the current economic environment right now, I would say across the banks in Singapore, for the most part, but not all, hiring is probably down. And we've taken an opportunity like this to retool. So a lot of the things these people are asking, we're actually doing with our existing staff, right? So that's kind of probably part of the obstacles with HSBC bringing people in at this point. But again, to the question prior to, yes, we look for that type of skill set as well. But I don't think there's a lot of accuracy in that the banks are moving people out because it's a high cost center. So it's not for us, that's for sure.
I kind of think that moving people across to a lower cost center, that was kind of like the thing of the past. I think now the new era is more about automation, chatbot, and all that. So the roles, the people who are affected will certainly have to go through retraining. They will have to pivot and they will have to be retrained. I think it's more of the robotics and automation that's the threat more than offshore.
Thank you. Merlin is.
I think agree with Chu Chong mentioned, because more automation. So those are so-called labor-intensive work. I don't think it will happen in banking industry now.
Thank you. I think that's enough time we have today, and I thank you all panelists for spending time with us and the audience